build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance.
Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. I'm Matty.
I am Colin.
And today we're joined by special guest, 2007 League Cup winning legend, Andrew McNeil. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. Not sure about the legend part, but yeah.
Anybody who wins a cup of Hibs is a legend.
I think that's the criteria, isn't it? Like, there aren't many cup winners in the Hibs sort of alumni, so I think you get that almost by default as soon as you win a cup. So a couple of things. You're over in Hong Kong at the moment?
No, in Shanghai.
Shanghai.
In Shanghai. Yeah.
All right, that's the first part of our research.
I knew that. I knew
it, did you? Right. You could have told me,
I just moved here 2 years ago, so it's been fairly recent, eh?
We need to update Wikipedia, but that's or Colin needs to update me. Aye. So a couple of things, like whenever you talk to somebody that's overseas, what time is it there and what's the weather like?
It is 7:10 at night, and it's like 35 degrees and 90% humidity, so it's a bit sweaty.
Very similar here in Dunfermline. So I suppose, how are you and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, no, I'm good. So I've been in Shanghai for the last 2 years now. So I'm working with a women's football club called Shanghai Shenli, and they're a Super League club, like top division. But I'm the goalkeeper coach for the reserve team. I've been working with them this year, so it's going pretty well, thanks.
And how did you come to be out there?
Well, I've been in China now for since the beginning of 2017, so quite a few years now. And I was with Guangzhou RNF before, which was in a different city, a men's Super League team, and I was there for a couple of years. But then when COVID came, that was kind of like a start of a lot of like cutbacks and things. I don't know if you're aware, there's a lot of men's teams in China that have went out of business and stuff like that. So it was kind of like the beginning of that. So we ended up moving for my wife's work from Guangzhou after I got my contract terminated. The whole team was terminated in Guangzhou, and we moved up to Shanghai, and then just through agents and stuff like that, ended up working with a football club here.
Fab. And you enjoyed it?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, like there's differences between men's and women's football. I've worked in women's football a wee bit in Scotland as well. But I find there's like pros and cons to both, right? So I'm really enjoying being a part of the club and just enjoying my time here. It's a great set. It's a great place to be. So I'm just happy. I'm just happy here. Yeah, everything's good. Like no complaints really.
Are they a full-time team, Andy?
Yes. Yeah. So it's quite a lot more developed here, women's football than in Scotland. But it's a lot more like government kind of funded. So like our football club is actually an arm of the Shanghai Football Association. So they have like a girls' women's program, that's kind of like district. There's 26 million people in Shanghai, right? I mean, it's like a vast place, and there's so many people. So they have like district-based things, and in the different sort of areas of Shanghai, and then I'm not too sure, but like they have like where I'm based in the training base there's like different age group teams. So it's under 16s and under 14s. I'm not sure below that, where they have a team, and this is like the pathway going into their first team. So all these young women like live on the training base, train every day, go to a local school, and then they move up for the pathway. So they just started this reserve team this year. And so our players are like age 16 to 22, and some of them are still in high school. Some of them are at university as well. They go there a couple of mornings a week, but they're full time and get paid and all that stuff. It's a really good setup. But like I say, it's kind of like government funded, so it's quite a bit different from what Scotland's like in that respect.
Yeah. How did you end up over there? Was it your wife's work that made you go there in the first place, and you ended up in football, or did you go because of the football and your wife got a job over there?
So there's a, maybe be familiar, they've changed the name. Well, there's Edu Sport Academy, right, in Scotland. Chris Ewings runs that, and so I was doing some work with them alongside playing with Greenock Morton at the same time. And a couple of afternoons I would coach and do bits and pieces with them. And basically, Chris got a call from somebody he knew in China asking about goalkeeper coaches. And he was happy with how I'd done with them, and he put me in touch with the people here. So that's why I ended up moving out here. I wasn't looking for it. I was played quite a few games in Morton. Morton were doing really well, playoff positions. We actually got to the League Cup final against Aberdeen at the end of 2016 that year. Like, it was going well. It was the best I've been playing for quite a long time, to be honest. And but it was just one of those ones that came up, and I was just like, stay here, keep on doing this, which has a shelf life, and it wasn't, even though things were, I was playing pretty well, like, it wasn't going in the direction that I would have dreamed of, in the beginning of my career. Yeah. Or take a gamble, go and do this, and then see where you're going to be in 10 years' time, and that was that. So I moved out here, and I actually met my wife out here.
Right.
So so that was, and it was just that we met in Guangzhou. She's a teacher in an American school. Katie, her name is, and she's actually from Canada. So yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole change. Yeah.
Right. So if I think you back to like your very early career, away from where you are just now. Now I'm trusting Wikipedia here, but Leith Academy student.
Leith Academy, yeah.
We ended up in Southampton's academy. How did that happen?
So I think there's a funny story actually. I always played football since I was a kid. My dad likes football, but he was not like a big football guy. What I mean? He was pretty casual about it. But his brother was into football and a pretty good amateur football player. So when I was like 5-6 years old, my dad spoke to him and was like, "Oh, I think Andrew should play some sports. What do you think?" And so he took me along to Inch House Boys Club, and I started playing there. And then, like everybody else, just oh, do you want to be a football player? Yeah, I want to be a football player. But like the reality is, like, you don't know anything else. So funny enough, first year at the school, had the first parents' evening, and I was okay at school, So the year head was like, "Oh, Andrew, like, mum and dad, like, you've done quite well the first couple of months, blah blah." What are you thinking about university or whatever? And I said, "No, like, I want to play football," right? And he basically laughed, Laughed, like, yeah, seriously. Like, look, everybody wants to play football. The reality is, like, you probably won't even get picked up by a team, like at 16. And even if you do, the chances of you making it are, as a professional, are like none. Like, you should get that out of your head and just focus on school or whatever. Wasn't what I wanted to hear.
It's funny how they try to talk you down like that, eh? Like, even, like the less than 1%, like 0.1% make it and all that. It's like, rather than, I think it still happens now. It's like, nobody makes it, and it's almost like, we'll just cut the wheat for the chaff now. The ones that really want to make it will ignore me. They want, it's like, it's because you still hear it. You still hear the chat about that percentage that make it, and it's tiny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is like, what do you do in these situations? I mean, the BBC a few years ago released like data on this, right? And it was like, there's like 1 million boys in England at the age of 10 play football, and only 100 of those boys will get picked up by a Premier League team at 16. And then out of those 100 boys, by 18, 98 of them will be out. By 21 of the 2 that are left, the one's out. And then you're left with the 1. And that's not even guaranteeing you like a career past 25, 30. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I understand people's perspective on that, where it's like, every boy in the school probably more or less wanted to play football, right? So the teachers are trying to like do that.
But they're saying that without any knowledge, right? It's like watching X Factor, right? And you go, how the fuck are they even on here, right? They're crap. Because the mum's been telling them they're good, or the dad's been telling them they're good. If somebody's talented, you should be encouraging it, not like, and if there must be talented people that are discouraged by somebody going, "You're never going to make it." By the way, it's 0.5%.
Is it just about having a contingency role, Colin? Like, because I had that chat
but that's not
with Josh. So like, I might say to my son about it, like, just to set his like have a backup just in case.
You each other if you were a footballer. That's the contingency. That's the automatic.
Yeah, not like, I mean, for me, like, I definitely see it from all sides, and I think, looking at it from the teacher's point of view, there's probably like every kid says that, but I agree with you where, like, if somebody's good at something, why would you put them down? But that was the interesting thing. So in the second half of that year, actually, the following year, sorry. So by second year, like, things started to kick off for me. So for example, like, like Hibs and Hearts were interested in taking me in the academy, Celtic and Rangers as well. And then Manchester United, Arsenal, Manchester City, Blackburn Rovers, Bolton, like, it was everybody. I couldn't find the time to go on trials with different teams. So we ended up just picking. Went to Manchester United, went there quite a few times, talked about me moving down and finishing my school, but concerns over my size. So they did like, I can't really remember, but they did some sort of like growth test, and it gives you like a predicted height, and it came out at 5'10", and they weren't satisfied with that, which is funny because Fabian Barthez was playing goals for them at the time. He was like 5'10", right? And interestingly enough, and it was the same at Arsenal. Arsenal was the same. They were really keen on me. I was going down for like a year back and forth, really keen, but it was coming to like decision time, and they had a guy called Mark Howard, and Mark was already like 6'4" at like 14, 15. Was like a man, and like, it's a good goalkeeper as well. So it's like, and funnily enough, Mark's played with Falkirk, played with Aberdeen, St Mirren, and now he's actually at Wrexham with like Ryan Reynolds and those guys. It's quite interesting. He was the goalkeeper last year. They got injured, and then Ben Foster ended up finishing the season. So pretty interesting. Yeah. Pretty interesting, right? Just these kind of things. So they were humming and hawing. But I'd been going down to Southampton as well because it was kind of thought like, well, Manchester United, huge club. I was kind of like, I liked Arsenal as a kid. I liked David Seaman, so I was like, Arsenal, I've got to give Arsenal a try. And then and we thought, well, Southampton was like a little bit of a smaller club, but still Premier League. And Southampton I actually liked the best. I really liked the goalkeeper coach there. And they were not concerned at all about, my size, my stature. They were like, we think you're really good, and we just want you to come and let's just see what happens. So it ended up being that I ended up not even waiting to see what Arsenal were going to do. They were probably going to go with Mark, to be honest. I'm not sure though. And I just thought, well, Southampton are really, really keen for me to come down. So it just seemed like a no-brainer. And it was a much smaller, much more family-orientated kind of club. And like Arsenal, they had you in like digs. We would go and live with a family with one or two boys. At Southampton, they had like a big old kind of B&B kind of hotel that they'd bought, and everybody stayed there. And it was just a much better environment for me. So that was why I ended up going there.
What was that when you're at that age and you've got clubs like you say, sort of doing growth tests and everything? You're hearing, listen, you're going to be too wee for us. Was that hard to hear? And did you worry that was going to like just kind of put the kibosh on things there and then?
Well, I think I was lucky that I had a lot of other opportunities, right? Like if it had just been one club and one club had said this and then there was no other opportunities, then you might kind of be going, well, this is like, this is the only perspective, this is the only opinion. But that wasn't the case, right? Like, so for me, it was like, well, that's a bit like my teacher who was saying, well, you probably can't do this. It was like, yeah, okay, I understand, but I'm going to try anyways. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like everybody else seems to like me, so I'm just gonna roll with it and keep on going. And that was that. It was disappointing. I think like anything, if you go somewhere and you do your best and people for whatever reason don't want to take you, of course you're like a little bit disappointed. But like as I say, it was kind of a short-lived disappointment because I had other opportunities with teams that were equally as good, right?
What age did you move down then?
16. So I wanted to move down earlier. I'm like a January birthday, like most professional football players are. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, I've read about that. Yeah.
Right. So I'm a January birthday. And I started school when I was like 4. So I started school early. So I had to stay on and do the first half of 5th year. Now I wanted to leave at Christmas, but my mum wouldn't let me, right? So she made sure that like I did finish my exams, plan B, right? Like you guys were talking about before, did my exams and then went down, I turned 16 in January and then went down that summer to do the pre-season and stuff.
Right.
And you had a good time at Southampton. I think won the FA Cup Youth or the FA Youth Cup. I can't say that. Yeah, FA Youth Cup. I noticed on Wikipedia it says on aggregate. So is this like a two-leg affair? Is it?
So again, research is poor. We lost.
Your wiki's a nightmare. You've been updating
it. So you had a bad time at Southampton. I'm just saying that a bad time.
No, I had a great time at Southampton. We had a really strong team, and we lost to Ipswich in the Youth Cup final. So that's under 18s. So the first, it's two legs. You're right, it's two legs. The first leg was 2-2 at St Mary's Stadium. Then we played at Ipswich's ground, which I can't remember the name of, and we lost. I think we lost 1-0. But it was the last minute of extra time before it was going to go to penalties.
Oh no!
So it was either 1-0 or 2-1. I can't remember. No, maybe you should check.
Can I ask him? I would ask him.
I'm beginning to doubt I'm even on the right podcast, if I'm honest with you.
So we lost, but it was good. And you know what was interesting was, so we lost that game, and you can imagine it's like end of the world. This is on like Sky Sports, and it's a huge deal, right? And everybody's like just distraught after the game. But our head of youth, a guy called Steve Wigley, said to us afterwards, like don't worry about it. Like, this is just a stepping stone. Like, you know, you've got so many talented players here. And he really, really picked us up nicely. And the truth was that, like, almost everybody in that team went on to have like an amazing career. Whereas in the Ipswich Town team, like, probably the only person you guys would know, Liam Craig played. You know, that played Liam Craig played for them, and there was a striker who did okay as well. But like, basically nobody else had a successful career. So it was just that way where, like, at the time, you know, we were all going this way, and a lot of them had kind of maybe reached their peak. So yeah, so that was pretty interesting. But it was a good club. It was a really good experience for me. Good to leave home, helped you grow up a lot, and definitely gave me like a really good like education and how to play football. Like it was so different from being in Scotland, like you wouldn't believe. So I was really lucky to have that opportunity, and I'm glad I did it. It was 2.5 years I was there. But really, really glad that I was able to go down, and I kind of just like I didn't particularly want to leave home. I didn't want to leave Leith. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. The last day of fifth year, we had a cup final. We played East of Scotland Cup or something, I can't remember. So Leith Academy against Beeslack. We played at Foresters or Allgate. I always get confused with the playing fields. Which one?
Yeah.
And anyway, so I played in goals for like 80 minutes. And it's 0-0. And the PE teacher's made like, it's one of those like crazy decisions that coaches make, and it's either great or it's not. So he's taken me off, put the other goalkeeper in the goal, and put me on at centre mid. And this has never happened before. Anyways, 0-0, not going to believe this, right? Goalkeeper, boom, goal kick. I don't like to head the ball, so I don't try and head it. I just hold the guy off because I'm not heading this. It bounces, goes over me. Great, running. Don't know what I'm doing, right? Idiot. And then one of the guys, winger, cuts inside, dribble along the 18-yard box. I'm like, pass me the ball, pass. Doesn't pass it to me. But the guy tackles him. And this ball comes like perfectly to me. Perfectly. Like you couldn't believe. Straight onto my right foot. Smash it. Goes through the defender's legs. Into the bottom corner. Unbelievable scenes. Boys are jumping on me. I'm suffocating at the bottom of this pile. Never scored a goal before in a game. Now, truthfully, it is the best feeling ever. This is the best feeling I've ever had in football, was scoring this one goal in the final. Best feeling ever. But what was sad about that was, like, everyone was buzzing, like, boys were going out, even though we're young, boys are going out, going to have a few drinks or whatever, right? I had to get on the plane to go down to Southampton directly after the game because I had to go down and train. And it was like, I was actually crying in the airport, like, because it sounds odd, right? But it was like this last day of school, last time I was going to be with a lot of, I was still pals with guys for Leith and that, but it was like the end of something, right? And it would have been so nice to have went out and like had a laugh and a joke and kind of like had a party with these guys or whatever, right? And I just remember crying in Edinburgh airport, thinking like, oh, like what am I doing? Like, I can't leave home, I can't leave people, I can't do this kind of thing. But went down and like it was fine. And again, it's just one of those ones where like and again, you're crying, right? But this is football, right? Crying. And it was like Saturday, we played on the Friday. Saturday was training. Sunday, I went to the FA Cup final to watch Southampton play Arsenal. So like it was a good thing, right? But it was just in that moment, it's like a young.
Exactly. How many of them would have swapped though? How many of your teammates at least would have swapped to be on that plane? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you just like your perspective at that moment is just as a young guy, it's just like you just want to be with your friends and stuff. So, but like a great experience, and you know, I would definitely if people have the chance as young football players and they think they get the chance to go down south and be involved in the system there, I would definitely say that's the way to go. Depends, obviously, it's individuals, but I'd say it's just so much better down there, so much more competitive. It's just so different.
I'm just amazed a teacher would take a goalie and put them into the centre of the midfield. That's like where good footballers play, and you're in goals for a reason, presumably.
Well, I must have been doing something right in PE class, but I don't know. So this is like stroke of genius, right? We won the game.
Either stay up front or right back or something, right?
Get the game over with, you know what I mean? I don't know. Either they score or we score. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going extra time.
You mind Man City today? Stuart Pearce put David James up front. They needed a goal to get to Europe, and he put David James up front. Obviously, that was mental.
We've mentioned that before. That's nuts. I had the strip ready for him and everything, with the name on it. So they thought about it. It was pre-planned. It wasn't like a panic move. Absolutely mental.
Well, I remember like it didn't go very well either.
No,
you just lost, eh? So,
aye. Right, I'm afraid to say the next part in case I get this wrong. Next stop was at Hibs, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
how did that happen?
Well, so what happened was, so when I first went to Southampton, Gordon Strachan was the gaffer, and David Coles was the goalkeeper coach, and it was Colesy that really brought me in. And then there was, I can't remember if you remember, but there was like Gordon Strachan done amazing. The team was like up the top end of the table, like it normally is in FA Cup final. And then it ended up just being that way that the chairman just wanted to do things differently. So Gordon ended up leaving. He was unhappy with how things were going. And then Sturrock came in and everything was more or less the same. Paul Sturrock came in. And then that didn't go so well. And then Harry Redknapp came in. And Harry was great, and you know, things were going pretty nicely for me. They had a really good system, people in on loan, out on loan. So I was like 19, and I was on the bench for like Worthington Cup games, right? So it's like, you know, because people were out on loan, I was essentially the third goalkeeper, but it's all part of their process, right? Like they do these kinds of things and training with the first team, and it was going well. But then Harry left and went to Portsmouth, and then George Burley came in. George Burley came in, all the support staff were kicked out, sacked. So the goalkeeper coach was kicked out, new coaches came in. You know, this is somebody that had been there for like 15 years and had a lot of success. But, you know, it's just football. Sometimes people are a little bit short-sighted with those kind of things, right? So Coles ended up leaving, and I was actually back in Scotland for a couple of days over Christmas. And he called me, told me this was what was happening. So I came back, and obviously the goalkeeper coach is there, and they actually signed a guy called... a Polish lad, Bartowski or something. And basically it was like he was the same age as me, 19, same. And he directly went into train with the first team. He was now playing the reserve team games, and I'd just been pushed to the side. So of course I spoke to them, and it was like, again, maybe something we'll touch on throughout the interview, but you know, it was basically, oh no, everybody's going to get a fair chance. And plus, you just signed this guy. You know what I mean? No, I'm not getting a fair chance. You know, like I'm sitting at the side of the pitch, not taking part in training, and he's training. Like there's no fair chance. And so I ended up sticking around for most of January, and I just said, like, nah, like let's just terminate my contract. Like this is not working. Yeah. One of my teammates after a couple of weeks was saying like you're playing really badly, like this is not right for you, you know, like pretty harsh but pretty fair, right? And I was like, no, you're right. The guy Feliciano, Portuguese guy, I was like, you're right, mate. So I got my contract terminated and came back up the road. Fortunately, Gordon Marshall was the goalkeeper coach at Hibs, and Marsh was also the goalkeeper coach with Scotland under 19s, and I was in that squad. So Marsh knew me, and you know, he knew that I came back up the road. So basically, he was within a couple of days. I was in at Hibs, played a reserve team game at Easter Road, so that Tony Mowbray and Martin Venus could have a look as well, and did okay in the game. And then they signed me until the end of the season. to see how it was going to go. And again, it went pretty well. I was on the bench for a couple of games when it was Simon and Zibby were the goalkeepers. And I got on the bench a couple of games. They were the two goalkeepers, but I was on the bench a couple of times. So it went really well, and so that was kind of the beginning of that.
So it was Mowbray that signed you. I couldn't remember the timeline. So when you were there, then who was the sort of? So that was a great. Was that the end of their time? How long did you play under those?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I mean, so you imagine I've signed in January or February 2006.
And they were away about October or something.
At the start of the next season, more or less. Yeah, they were away. So
we go back to that time all the time. The amount of, that's like the even at our age in our 40s, that's still one of the best times to be a Hibs fan, watching that team playing. Who was the sort of, what's your memories of that time then? What like best players and like all the characters in the dressing room and that?
Well, the team was was very strong, because not only did they have good players, they had players who were also like young and then were already good and going. And so, like for example, when I first arrived, Guy O'Connor was still there, right? And Gary was doing really well. I'm trying to think that you're testing me now with the players.
Who else was there? Either.
Well, Neil Boozlin was there. This is before Boozy got injured as well, and Boozy was just like unbelievable. And you had obviously Scott Brown, Tomo, all these guys were playing and like starting to do well, but were like already excellent players. And it was just a really, really strong Gary Caldwell, who obviously like went down to England, captain for Scotland, played with guys that were basically everybody was just going that way at that point. Such a strong team. And it was good. It was good for me. It was an eye opener. Our first training session was at Pinkie, Musselburgh, the school.
Musselburgh. Yeah.
And so this is like, you go from being down the road in the English Premiership, right? And clubs got their own training grounds. And I'm not saying it's the best. I mean, like Southampton's training ground wasn't as good as Manchester United's or Arsenal's, but it was like you had all these pitches, you had an indoor area, you had the gym, you had good food. Like it had everything you needed and more. It was really great. And then you turn up at Easter Road. I was in the youth team dressing room, right? So you get changed, and then you're getting on a minibus to go to Pinkie to like assemble the goals in February. Like it was absolutely horrible. So I was like standing there like, what has happened? Is this the right way? But yeah, no, it was fine. It just took you just
it's
have
mad when you think it. Players that have been at Hibs before the training ground got opened that had to go and do shit like that up to the Jack Kane or down to Musselburgh, down to is it Wardy and all that. Down, is a pitch available? Scoop up the dog shit, and get on with it.
Well, it used to be like honestly, like, they didn't know where they were going to train. Like honestly, you would turn up and it would be like people are, I say scrambling, but they're calling up to make sure this pitch is okay, because like you say, it was Pinkie, it was civil service, it was Edinburgh Academic, just at next to Botanic Gardens. Edinburgh. I can't remember what that place is called there. Wardy, all over the place. It just depended, and it was that's just the way it was.
Did it feel at the time that you were part of a special team? Like, could you tell? Was that the sense in the dressing room?
I think I'm not a good person to ask, because when you're like a young person, you just have no idea. It's just normal, It's just normal. You know what I mean? Like I'd just been down the road, playing with these guys, and they were pretty good, very good. And now you're playing with these guys, and they're real good. And at that point for me, like my career was like step by step. Like it was like under 18s FA Youth Cup final, under 19s European Championship final, and then now you're, it was just like, so it felt very normal to be around those kinds of people, and it wasn't like obvious to me that it was any different, because I didn't know. 3 years I've been playing. 3 years, like I don't know anything, no clue. So, but you knew it was good, like because obviously you're in there. It's like, oh, this is really tough, but you don't know how, because like you say, I'm sure we'll get on to it in a bit. But after I was released from the club, maybe after Yogi's first year, like things didn't go well for a long time, So you have no idea that's what the future is going to hold, right?
Yeah. You missed Stephen Fletcher at your list. He would have been in that 19 squad for you at the finals, wouldn't he? Aye, that was.
Yeah. And Fletch was already starting to play, and again, like he was. This is what's always interesting is like with this youth team stuff, and I fall into this category as well. Is like there's people that do really well early on, and there's people that are a little bit more of a slow burn. And Fletch was like, I was in the Scotland national team squads at like 15 and stuff, and like all the way through to like 21. And, Fletch was like a couple of years after most of the other guys. He like after we went pro, Fletch started to like really, really kick on. And then like, again, I think arguably he's probably the most successful in that. I'm trying to think.
So, terms of money, probably. Scott Brown probably medals, but yeah.
So I mean, just people my age. Sorry, that like under 19 national team.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't think. Well, no, but Graham Dorrance was in there as well, and Snodgrass as well, actually. So probably similar, actually, right? But the three of them like winning.
It's funny how many don't know. Back to that conversation, because like, remember, you'll probably not remember, but when we were younger, the Scotland under 16s, I think, got to the World Cup final against Saudi Arabia, and it was like the Saudi Arabia under 35s that played in the final. But there's only like Paul Dickov's about the only one that made it out of that. Like made it, if you like. I think there's one or two others that played maybe at Aberdeen or I think there was one at that's the only one I actually remember, Paul Dickov. There is others, but there's very few actually made it through. And you think they were World Cup finalists, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Ian Westmore was one of the goalkeepers. I don't know. It was before my time.
Yeah.
No, I used to. I could be told for that. But I would need to go and check that. I wanted to ask you about, so you're back to Hibs again, back to the team at Hibs, and obviously it's a great side, right?
Yeah.
But the goalies got hammered, not before your time, the two that were there already. What was your thoughts on the two keepers when you came in? Did you think, I'm in here and they bother, or did you rate them higher than that?
No. I think so. What happened was it was like when I first arrived, Zibby was like Simon was playing, and then Zibby ended up playing. And then Zibby was like Morgan, Tony and Mark preferred Zibby, right? Yeah. And honestly, in training, Zibby was unreal in training. Like honestly, he just said that he was so good, and so I was kind of behind him. And when he made a few mistakes and stuff, of course, people within the team maybe start to say things. But for me, I was like, well, I've never played. Right, and it's very easy to sit here and say like, "Oh, I'd do this and I'd do that," but the reality was like I was 19, I had no experience. I believed in myself. Don't get me wrong, I believed in myself, but I'm just also a realist. It's like I don't know what's going to happen if I play. Right, I've never played in the first team. Training is not the same. So for me, it was like I tried to be as supporters of Zibby as possible because like I didn't want him to do badly. I don't want anybody to do badly, right? And I didn't think it was like my time yet. I still kind of viewed myself as like a younger guy, and I was still pretty happy to just be on the bench. Like there was cup games and stuff where I was a little bit frustrated that maybe you could have put me in a cup game against a second division team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was a little bit frustrated in those games. But generally I was like, no, like, Zibby's 10 years older than me and like he's good. And this is the way it's probably going to be for a while. I need to do more, and I just need to wait to play some games, maybe in pre-season or whatever, and just see how it goes. So, I thought it was a little bit. It was hard for him, and I thought it was a little bit unfair, to be honest. Yeah.
Because he still gets hammered now. Folk talk about him.
Mainly by me, by the way. Honestly, like I thought Simon Brown was a better goalie than him, but I'll take your information on it. I remember still the game. It might have been it would have been when you got your chance. I was at the derby at Tynecastle. It was Christmas time, I think, between Christmas and New Year, or about then. And I think it was the day Dean Shields got sent off for bumping into Craig Gordon, and we got back to 2-2, and then Zibby lit one, he palmed it straight out to whoever, the guy that won the European Cup. I can't remember his name. Jankowskis, is it? I think he scored it and they won 3-2. And we were all fucking raging. And I got home and it must have been on the TV, and John Collins had been on the telly basically saying, he'll never fucking play for this team ever again. You know, that was the
was that
the
the
kids
pub
chatting. And I
game?
think I probably was actually,
Was
and then you got your chance. I think you were then sort of first sub in, like you were straight in as number one after that.
I think it's again, this is something that's really interesting. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? So like this is really good. It's something I'm thinking about a lot. Is like, you know, when you watch football, most people, it's like what you see is all there is, right? So you see maybe Zibby didn't play well in that game or made a mistake, and then John's immediate reaction, and then you see the outcome of that. But actually, there was more of a build up to that, you know, like so. The reason why Tony and Mark liked Zibby was because Zibby was like, would come for crosses and was pretty like aggressive and did all these kinds of things, and they were like very into that, and they wanted you to kick it quickly and throw it quickly. Doesn't matter if you make a mistake, blah 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 blah. We'll always back you. If you do what we want, doesn't matter if you make a mistake. So, you know, so when Zibby made maybe lost one or two poor goals, maybe came and missed a cross or something one time, they didn't really care. Because they wanted them, they say, if you get 29 out of 30, brilliant, like brilliant. Yeah. So that's, you know, where that's something that maybe people don't really know, but they didn't necessarily articulate that in the press, right?
Yeah.
But that's was what they wanted.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they wanted. So that's what I'm saying to you. It's a little bit, but then when John didn't necessarily want that. Right. So this is like, it's not just about how you play. It's about like the goalkeeper matching the style of play as well. So there was other things where, like, you know, John really wanted to play it from the back and play short, and Zibby wasn't super comfortable doing that, right? And I was. So it wasn't just one thing, right? If you know what I mean. It's not just like Zibby made a mistake in this game or whatever. It's like there's many factors. So I think that was like, because when John came in, there was a decision around whether it's like, you know, should I be out and Simon back on the bench? Because now it's a new coach, right? That was something that was, I think, was discussed. And then I can distinctly remember playing a friendly game against Berwick Rangers, and Simon played in the first half and I played in the second half. And it was after this game that John kept me on the bench because I was happy to play up a slope in the against the wind in the mud. I was happy to play short, you know, maybe, you know, because that's what I'd been taught at Southampton, and I was capable of doing that, right? So, you know, that was again, so for, you know, for Zibby, it was being a little bit older and not having that kind of football education. It was a little bit harder for him to play in that system. So then when things weren't going well, it probably made it a little bit easier to change things, right?
So we're almost out of time for this episode. In fact, we'll probably just overrun by a couple of minutes. Just before we wrap up, because we're going to carry on the interview into our extra time episode, which is for subscribers. I just want to ask you, so John Collins obviously then puts you in the first team. How was it as a young goalkeeper being put in under those circumstances? Did you feel added pressure, or were you kind of quite comfortable that this was just your time and you knew you were going to make the best of it?
Well, it was a surprise, right? Big Marsh told me the day before the game against Dunfermline. He told me on the Friday. I think Friday and played Saturday or whatever it was. And you imagine like a fucking shit my pants, absolutely shit my pants. And at the end of the training, like I was like, fuck. Because like I said to you, my expectations were not that Zibby was bad and that I should play, and you know, people aren't doing what I want. That wasn't how I was feeling. So I was like, oh shit, okay. But then when it came to the game, you know, by having that 24 hours or so to like think about it, come the game, I was like, okay, well, this is what I signed up for, right? This is why I signed here. This is what I want. This is why I was frustrated not playing in these cup games or whatever. Like I want to play, and I want to go. Like I want to go and do good things. So I got the chance and was just happy to play. And you know, it was a pretty nice game. Dunfermline weren't doing that well that year, right? So it was probably like a good, again, talking about things behind the scenes that maybe aren't, like we're playing against a team that's bottom of the league and we're doing pretty well. So like it was probably a nice game to give me a try. And yeah, like, and it went well. So yeah, that was good.
Good. Okay, right, we'll wrap this one up here. Like I said, we'll be back with extra time, and we'll talk more about your time at Hibs, and in particular the cup final, which we're desperate to hear about. Thanks everybody for listening, Andrew. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch you next time. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink what I know.